Chris Dickey, welcome to WPC TV. You are a big journalistic personality, many years as a correspondent in Newsweek and now, of course, the Daily Beast. And your speciality has always seemed to me to be the Middle East.
And terrorism.
And terrorism, indeed, unfortunately. But how do you see a resolution to two things, the crisis in Syria and the tension in the Muslim world between Sunnis and Shias, between, if you like, Saudi Arabia and Iran?
Oh, well, I think there's two things that we have to realize that overlap with those two questions. First of all, I think, I hate to say it, but a lot more people are going to have to die in Syria. It is a lot like the Balkans were in the mid-90s, where the sides had not exhausted themselves. No major power had stepped in to force a resolution. And eventually you have to wait until the parties are so exhausted that they will go to the peace table and talk seriously. Even if all parties convene for the talks in January at the end of the day, which is very much in doubt.
Unlikely.
But even if they all convened, the chances of them reaching any kind of serious agreement anytime in the near future would be very small. So I think it's a terrible thing to say, but there's going to be a lot more fighting for a lot longer time. And what may be even worse to say is I think that the Obama administration has decided that that is the course of events that it will follow and has to accept. I think it has decided it cannot intervene in a way that will end the war until the parties are ready to end it themselves.
Does that imply that the Obama administration is taking a different tack on U.S. relations with Saudi Arabia?
Well, the Saudis have a very different policy, but it involves the Obama administration and the United States. The Saudis, the Turks, all the players who want to see the rebels overthrow Assad, or at least want to see Assad overthrown, maybe more correctly put, all want the Americans to intervene. They want the Americans to fix this problem for them. The Americans are not going to fix this problem for them. The United States is exhausted. It is sick of war. It is especially sick of war in the Middle East. It didn't need to go to war in Iraq. It got stuck in Afghanistan. Another war in the Muslim world is not on the agenda for the American Congress, the American president, or the American people. It's not going to happen. So if they're waiting for the Americans to solve this problem, it's going to be a long wait. And I think that what Kerry has told them and what Obama has told them is we have got to actually maintain a balance between the opposing parties, which is exactly what's happened if you think about it. You know, the Saudis and others have complained that, and the Turks have complained that the United States backed away, that it didn't use military action after threatening to use it in September. But what happened is that the chemical weapons in Assad's arsenal were taken off the table. If that had not happened, Assad would have won the war. That would have tipped the balance. It was already tipping the balance. Any of us who covered Iraq in the late 80s and early 90s remember the effect of Saddam using chemical weapons on his own people. It's not the moral effect, it's the terror effect that counts. And if Assad had had that and could exploit it, then you would have seen mass exodus of people who've been reluctant to leave. Well, they would decide to leave, just as in 1991, all Saddam had to do was fly helicopters over the Kurdish territory and hundreds of thousands of people fled.
When you talk about the players wanting the Americans to fix it, if the Americans don't want to fix it, is there a role for Russia?
Well, to the extent that the United States and Russia can agree on certain things, as they agreed finally to try and eliminate this chemical arsenal in Syria, that is a big stride forward. That's a big stride forward. But now let's go to the question of Sunni versus Shia. It isn't really as simple as that. It's probably more useful to think in terms of a triangular conflict with Saudi Arabia at the apogee, or whatever the geometrical term would be. Because Saudi Arabia is fighting in two different directions. On the one hand, it wants to keep Iran from becoming the regional superpower that Iran is probably destined to be. On the other hand, it doesn't want the Muslim Brotherhood to become too powerful in the region. In fact, it would like to crush the Muslim Brotherhood and has done everything it can to achieve that in Egypt and also in Syria. You know, one of the reasons that we talk about the difficulty uniting the Syrian opposition, it's not just because of the inaction of the Americans, it's because the Saudis did not want the Qatar-based Muslim Brotherhood to take over the political and potentially the military leadership in Syria. And that's one of the reasons it all got so complicated. So if you've got the Saudis trying to fight the Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood on the one hand, the Iranians on the other, you've got the Turks backing the Muslim Brotherhood, suspicious of the Iranians, but also a little bit frightened of them. And you've got the Americans being asked to save the day. The Americans say, no, you fix this one.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, for describing this Rubik's Cube. And history teaches us that Rubik's Cubes are very, very difficult to solve quickly. So thank you so much for being with WPC TV.
Thank you, John.